So he attacked this doctrine of the inviolability of Zion, and that would have been iconoclastic to say the least. But he pointed to history as proof for his assertion. He cites the example of Shiloh as an example. If you remember, during the period of the Judges, when the Ark of the Covenant was peripatetic and would stay at different places, but for some time it came to rest at Shiloh with the priest Eli and his sons. And in that time, the Philistines managed to destroy the sanctuary and capture the ark and carry it off into Philistine territory. So the presence of the Ark of the Covenant is no guarantee of anything. And the belief that God would not allow his temple, his city, his anointed ruler to be destroyed, Jeremiah says, is a deception. It's an illusion. His political message resembles very much the message of his predecessors. He says that the nation's pathetic attempts to resist the great powers and to enter into alliances with the one against the other, these were all completely futile. And to dramatically illustrate the destruction and the slavery that were inevitable, he paraded around Jerusalem, first in a wooden yoke and then in an iron yoke. He does this in chapters 27 and 28. This is a symbol of the slavery, the yoke of the master that is to come. In chapter 27, verse 6, he claims that God has power over all the earth and has given the earth to Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, God's servant. As you can imagine, referring to the destroyer of the nation as God's servant would have been shocking, not to say dangerous. You can imagine parallels in our own time where people would see the God most commonly understood to be the God of most Americans being the one who orchestrated attacks against us. It would have that same kind of feel and power to people. And in several passages, Jeremiah exhorts the king to submit to the Babylonian forces. This is acceptance of God's will, the forces that are surrounding Jerusalem. To ensure the preservation of his words, which were not popular, Jeremiah had his amanuensis, Baruch, write down everything that God spoke to him. Chapter 36 gives us an insight into this process. It's kind of interesting because Jeremiah's words are transcribed. God specifically tells Jeremiah how to do this. Get a scroll, he says, and write upon it all the words that I have spoken to you concerning Israel and Judah and all the nations, from the time I first spoke to you in the days of Josiah to this time. Now it's the time of King Jehoiakim. And then in verse 4 we read, So Jeremiah called Baruch son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote down in the scroll at Jeremiah's dictation all the words which the Lord had spoken to him. Now Jeremiah is in hiding at this time because he's politically very unpopular, so he instructs Baruch to take the scroll to the temple and to stand there and to read it to the people. The king's officials are there. They report to the king about the subversive message which has been delivered by Baruch. So Baruch goes into hiding. The scroll is torn into strips and burned. God orders Jeremiah to get another scroll and repeat the process, and he does. Verse 32 of chapter 36. So Jeremiah got another scroll and gave it to the scribe Baruch son of Neriah, and at Jeremiah's dictation he wrote in it the whole text of the scroll that King Jehoiakim of Judah had burned, and more of the like was added. And then some, right? They came back with even more. So it's possible that some scholars suggest that what was written would have been the contents of chapters 1 to 25, which really contains the oracular material, the oracles. But in any event, this story gives us some insight into the process of prophecy. It doesn't appear to have been really off the cuff. The compositions of the prophets were literary compositions that were committed to memory. They could then be dictated again.